Hello and welcome to our workshop on thesis and dissertation formatting presented by the UTA Graduate School. I'm so happy that you're able to join me today for this important topic. So let's go ahead and dive right in. The UT Arlington Graduate School does have a manual for thesis and dissertation writers, which contains a roadmap that really gives you a lot of guidance and instruction on how to do your formatting. The link to that manual is here on this slide, and this manual is the primary source for the presentation that follows. Now, there are two styles of theses and dissertations that I would like to discuss today. The first style is the monograph style. So this is what you think of when you think of a traditional thesis or dissertation. It's kind of the standard. It's one document with early chapters that provide a literature review. The literature review gives the basis of and the rationale for a research problem that is analyzed in the subsequent chapters of the thesis or dissertation. And then it wraps up with a final chapter that summarizes the work as a whole. Now, the chapters are typically organized with this type of structure. As I mentioned, you start off with that literature review. The next chapter typically talks about methods. Third chapter discusses results. And the final chapter will discuss the conclusions and just kind of wrap up the work. Now, there is another type of thesis or dissertation that you may choose to write, and that is the article-based thesis or dissertation. This style is particularly popular amongst graduate students in the STEM fields. Now, in an article-based thesis or dissertation, the body chapters, the main body of the dissertation, is going to consist of completed manuscripts. And these manuscripts may be in preparation for publication, in press, or already published, let's say in a scholarly journal, for example. All of the manuscripts contained within the article-based thesis or dissertation must be about a common theme or problem. So they need to be coherent. There needs to be coherence across the chapters. This common theme or problem that all the manuscripts address is identified and discussed in an introductory chapter. Now, at the end of the article-based dissertation, there is also a final concluding chapter that discusses the theme or problem in light of the information contained in the manuscripts, and this allows the author to explore the broader implications of the work as a whole. So the organization of an article-based thesis or dissertation generally takes the format that you see on this slide. Your first chapter, the introduction, is going to present the common theme or problem that the manuscripts address. And then once you get to chapter 2, that's going to be your first manuscript or your first paper. Chapter 3 is going to be your second manuscript, paper, article. Chapter 4 is going to be the third one, etc. The number of manuscripts that you put in the body of your article-based thesis or dissertation may vary based on your discipline and the preferences of your committee. So do communicate with your committee if you're choosing this style regarding how many journal articles or manuscripts that you should include in your article-based thesis or dissertation. Now, regardless of how many articles you include, you will have a final chapter at the end, which will just wrap everything up and put a bow on top in the form of a conclusion. Here are some key formatting differences between the two styles. In an article-based dissertation, your different articles may be written to conform to different standards, the different standards of different publishers or intended publishers. But the page numbers of all the papers included in your dissertation must continue consecutively throughout the thesis or dissertation. So if you're starting your article-based dissertation and you start with your introductory chapter, that's page 1. Let's say that's page 1 through 25. Let's say you write a 25-page introduction. Then you get to chapter 2, that's your first paper, and that's going to be page 26. So you don't leave in the same page numbers that were where it was published in the journal. Like, let's say the article was published in a journal and it was page 300 in the journal. It's still going to be page 26 in your dissertation. So consecutive numbering within the dissertation. Now, if you're doing the more traditional monograph style thesis or dissertation, you would need to follow a university-defined format throughout. And that is going to be a format that follows the standards of your specific field of study. So the graduate school is not going to tell you that you have to format your document in MLA style or APA style or Chicago Manual of Style, for example. But you're going to want to instead talk to your committee about what style they prefer, and then keep that formatting consistent throughout your document. Now, some things to consider if you are writing an article-based thesis or dissertation. Number 1, authorship. So you, as the author of the thesis or dissertation, must be the sole or primary author of all articles included in the thesis or dissertation. If you are including co-authored articles, all co-authors should be informed of your intention to use the co-authored work, and your co-authors must agree to permit these articles to be used in your thesis or dissertation. One handy way to document that you have obtained the permission of your co-authors to include the co-authored article in your thesis or dissertation is to use the multiple author release form. This form is available on the graduate school's website, and it's just a really simple way. It's something that your co-authors can sign, just indicating that yes, they know you're using this article in your dissertation, and yes, it is fine with them. And then you can put those signed multiple author release forms in the appendix of your thesis or dissertation to document that you did obtain that permission. Now, the contributions of all writers in co-authored articles must be clearly stated, and that clear statement of contributions is normally presented in a subsection of the introductory chapter. A second thing to consider is copyright permission. So if you are including an article that has been published or has been accepted for publication, you must secure written permission from the publisher, giving you permission to use that article in your thesis or dissertation. Yes, it's your article, but when you put it in your thesis or dissertation, that means it's going to be published. And if it's already been published somewhere else, or you've already signed a publication agreement with the publisher somewhere else, they must give their permission for you to reuse it in your thesis or dissertation. Permission to use material must be indicated at the beginning of each chapter that contains copyrighted material. And finally, as I mentioned before, you do have a choice of style and format guides, but you want to choose a style and format that is appropriate to your academic discipline. If you are writing an article-based dissertation, the articles themselves, the style may vary slightly to conform to the standards of the intended publishers, but keep it consistent with your introduction and your conclusion. Keep a consistent style there at the very least. Try to make it as consistent as possible across the board. Now, if you have any questions about what type of style to use, it's always best to consult with your supervising committee. Also, the thesis and dissertation manual contains more information on chapter requirements for this type of formatting. Consistent formatting throughout is important for all theses and dissertations. So as I said, try and keep it as consistent as possible throughout the document. All theses or dissertations are going to contain some front matter, and I will talk a little bit more about what that involves momentarily. You're also going to have a body or main text. That's the heart of your document, where you write your brilliant ideas. And then you're going to have some back matter, which we'll talk about in more detail in a moment. But first, the front matter. So the required front matter includes a title page. This is going to have your name, the title of your document, and the date. The date must be the month and the year in which you will graduate. The only choices are May, if you're graduating in the spring, August, if you're graduating in the summer, or December, if you are graduating in the fall. The title page should not have a number on it. You'll also need an abstract page, which must be double-spaced, and a table of contents. And I'm going to show you in a bit some tips and tricks for how to format this title page and table of contents in Microsoft Word. Some optional front matter includes a copyright page, an acknowledgements page. That's if you want to thank people who helped you throughout your dissertation or thesis writing process, and a dedication page. That would be, for example, if you wanted to dedicate your work to a partner, a friend, your parents, fantastic staff members in the graduate school, whatever the case may be. But that is optional, so you don't have to dedicate your dissertation to anyone if you don't want to. And finally, if you have a lot of tables, figures, abbreviations, etc., you may want to consider including a list of tables, list of figures, or list of abbreviations. Again, this is optional. In the body or the main text, obviously that's going to be the heart of your dissertation, where you write all of your wonderful original ideas. As far as formatting goes, you want to begin the page numbering with Arabic numerals and number each page consecutively to the end of the thesis or dissertation. Do not skip any pages within the body of the thesis or dissertation. And finally, the back matter. So you will need a bibliography, references, or works cited page. Now, you may choose to put all of your references at the very end of the document as back matter, or you may choose to provide your references at the end of each individual chapter. So you aren't required to do both. You are required to have references somewhere, either all of them at the very end or references at the end of each individual chapter. And if you aren't sure which you prefer or which would be best for you, best to talk to your committee and get their input. Also, at the back, you have an optional appendix. That's where you can include various documents like that multiple author release form that I mentioned earlier. Now, additional formatting requirements to keep in mind. Your page size is going to be the standard 8.5 by 11 inches. Your text is going to be double-spaced with some exceptions. Block quotes, lists and text, table and figure titles can be single-spaced. Also, appendices, footnotes, endnotes, your reference section, figure and table titles, as mentioned earlier, all of those can be single-spaced. Your margins are going to be a minimum of 1 inch. As for font, you can choose any 10 or 12 point font that you want. I would strongly suggest 12 point because it's easier on the eyes. Don't choose an italic, ornamental, or script font. You want a pretty standard font. Choose one style and use it throughout. Times New Roman or Arial are both pretty safe choices if you aren't sure what to choose, but you can also ask your committee members what they prefer because they're going to be the ones reading it, so whatever is easiest on the eyes for them is probably your best choice. Now, smaller font sizes may be used in footnotes, endnotes, figure captions, large tables, and appendices, appendices as long as they remain legible. Fonts smaller than 7 are not considered legible, so do try and keep it as easy on the eyes as possible with a larger font size than 7. Pages should be numbered, beginning with the first page of the body of the document. So that's going to be in Arabic numerals. Any pages prior to the first page do not have to be numbered. So that would be your table of contents, your title page, your dedication page. Those do not have to be numbered. But if you do number them, use Roman numerals. And I will show you a little more about how to make that work in just a moment. The placement of the page numbers, just choose a place, keep it consistent, keep it in the same location. The page numbers must not contain text or any other symbols, just the number only. If you have any landscape pages, keep the location of the page number in the same location as on your portrait pages. If you have figures and tables within your document, make sure that they fit within the required 1-inch margins. Don't make your margins smaller just to fit in a table or a figure. Any tables or figures that are too long or too wide for a single page may be continued on to the next page, but keep those margins at 1 inch. Any headers or headings that you have, please format them consistently and follow the practices of your discipline in doing so. Now for your references or your bibliography, as we mentioned before, they can either go at the end of each chapter or you can have one big list in the back matter section. And the thesis and dissertation manual has more information on how you can present either format. So who decides when a thesis or dissertation is ready to be archived? Well, it's actually not the graduate school. What happens is the supervising committee, after you have a successful defense, informs the electronic thesis and dissertation coordinator in the library. Then you sign an intellectual property statement. If this is not provided to the ETD coordinator in the library, then your thesis or dissertation will not satisfy graduation requirements. So make sure that you do complete that intellectual property statement and return it to the ETD coordinator in a timely manner. Once they have everything they need, the ETD coordinator will notify the Office of Admissions, Records, and Registration that you have satisfied your thesis or dissertation requirement. Hooray! Now here's the current contact information for the current ETD coordinator. Her name is Brittany Griffiths, excuse me. There's her phone number and email address. And here it is even bigger, along with a link to the ETD coordinator website where you can find more information. So that concludes my PowerPoint presentation. And now what I want to do is I want to dive into Microsoft Word in more detail and show you all how to do some formatting tips and tricks inside of Microsoft Word. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and show you guys a Microsoft Word document. I think it's always a good idea to do any practice within a mock document instead of trying to play with formatting inside of your actual thesis or dissertation document that you're working on. Because Microsoft Word can be tricky, sometimes things can go wrong. And if you accidentally really mess something up or lose large chunks of information, it's safer to do that in a practice document than in your actual thesis or dissertation file that you're working on. So that's why I'm showing you these tricks in Microsoft Word in this kind of fake document. Now, it's a good idea to get started on your formatting as early as possible in your thesis and dissertation writing process and kind of keep it up as you go along rather than trying to format everything right before the thesis or dissertation is due. Trying to go and do your formatting on the back end can be really stressful. So the earlier you start, the easier it is. But I do recognize that not everybody starts with a blank document. which is why we have this kind of fake document here already with some writing on it to show you some of the advanced formatting tools that Microsoft Word has to offer. So just some notes about Microsoft Word before I start showing you specific things. As I said, Microsoft Word can be tricky. What works in one version might not work at all or in the same way in another version. So as you work on your thesis and dissertation, it is highly advisable that you do not switch back and forth between versions of Word, nor between older and newer operating systems, because compatibility mode is not always truly compatible. Finally, as much as I have worked with Microsoft Word, I don't consider myself to be an expert, but I'm certainly willing to try and work through formatting issues that you may come across. I'm always open to taking any questions that you may have by email at graduate.studies@uta.edu. But for now, let's go ahead and get started, and I will show you some tips and tricks to help make things easier and help you get some of your requirements formatted. So the first thing that I am going to show you is invisibles. Once you've opened up your Word document, you can go to the Home ribbon and click on this icon that looks like a backwards P. When you click on that, you can see symbols that Word is using as far as formatting. If you're ever typing a document and you just cannot figure out why a certain formatting thing is happening, then you can turn on the invisibles to try and figure it out. You can turn off the invisibles by clicking the button again. So on, off. All right, next, let's create a heading style. If you want Microsoft Word to eventually make a table of contents and other front matter for you, then you would need to use styles. Let me show you how this is done. I'm going to put my cursor in the Word chapter on the first page here where it says Chapter 1. And now I'm going to look at different heading style options. So here are the heading styles. And as you see, as I move my cursor, you can see different style options. Okay, they look nice. For the purposes of this workshop, I am going to use heading 1 for my chapters. So I'm going to go through and make every chapter title in this document heading 1. Click on heading 1, click on the chapter, click on heading 1. Okay, now all of my chapters are formatted in heading 1. Now, there is something you may have noticed, and that is the soft return. So even though I put my cursor in chapter, when I clicked on heading 1, both chapter and introduction formatted in heading 1. That's because these two lines are linked using a soft return. I'm going to turn on my invisibles again to show you. This little line and arrow here indicates that a soft return was used. A soft return is Shift Enter. So if you hold down Shift Enter, it does a soft return. And what that does is it tells Microsoft Word that those two lines are connected. And that way, if you put heading 1 in one line, it will be heading 1 in the other line that is connected. So that is why you see that formatting there. All right, turning off my invisibles again. All right, so now we're going to do the subheadings. I'm going to put my cursor in the first subheading, and we're going to make it heading 2. But instead of just making it plain old heading 2, I want to get a little creative. I'll show you how you can modify headings. So if you right-click and then go to Modify, you can modify how your heading style looks. You can make it a different font if you want, although you may remember I told you consistent fonts are important, so I don't necessarily want to change the font, but I'll just change up the color. We'll do blue and orange for UTA colors. All right, so now heading 2 is orange. Okay, And I'm going to make my subheading heading 2. Great. Now I'm going to do all my subheadings as heading 2. So I'm just going to go through. Every subheading is going to get the heading 2 treatment. It's becoming nice and orange. All right, carrying on, we got some more subheadings in chapter 3. So every subheading is going heading 2. All right. So now we've got our headings and our subheadings formatted. So what we are going to do now is we're going to go ahead and take care of some of the required front matter that I mentioned, namely the title page and the table of contents. So you can either start building your table of contents on a blank document, or if you've already got a document going, you can add one to an existing document. And that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to the beginning of the document, putting my cursor before the first letter on the first page, and I'm going to enter a page break by pressing Control Enter. That created a new page up above. Now I'm going to move my cursor up. I'm going to create another page. Control Enter. You can do this as many times as you want. So if you're doing an acknowledgements page, a dedication, you're putting your abstract in here, you can create as many new pages as you like. For the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and make my first page a title page. Now the format of the title page may vary based on your discipline, so definitely consult with your committee. Look at other theses or dissertations that have been written in your discipline by other UTA writers that have been successful to kind of get ideas on how to format your title page. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to go very simple. I'm going to call my dissertation the Dissertation of Greatness. And it's going to be by me. And I'm going to say that I am graduating in May 2021. Okay, so that's my title page. I'm going to move my cursor down. Now what I want to do is create my table of contents. So I'm on my next page, not the title page, but the next blank page that I created. And I am going to go to the References tab here and select Table of Contents. Now you can see there are a couple of different options for automatic tables or a manual table you can create. I'm going to go with automatic table 2 because the first automatic table is sometimes a little glitchy for me. So I just clicked automatic table 2 and you will see all of the headings and subheadings that I created just automatically populated into a table of contents, which is super easy and great news for me. You do have to format those headings or subheadings first, though, to get them to auto-populate into your table of contents. All right, so let's say we've made our table of contents, we've made our title page. Let's say we have some figures and tables within our dissertation. And in fact, we do. Here's a figure of a really cute koala. So how do we add captions to our figures and tables? Well, what we're going to do is put our cursor underneath the figure, and from the References ribbon, I'm going to click on Insert Caption. This is not a table, this is a figure. So I'm going to call this a figure, and I can also give it a label. So figure 1 is automatically in there, but I can label it koala. Okay. Now I've got another one. Oh, I got some penguins here. So I'm going to do the same thing, insert caption, and I'll call it penguins. And if this were a table, I would just go to table, etc. So you kind of see how this works. That's the idea there. You can also create a list of figures or a list of tables if you have quite a lot. It's very similar to creating the table of contents. Alrighty, so moving on here, let's insert some page numbers. Now, page numbers can get kind of tricky. because we've got a title page here, which should not have any page number at all. We've got some front matter, which page numbers are optional on the front matter, but if we do have them, they should be in Roman numerals. And then we've got the body of our dissertation, which is where our Arabic numeral page numbering should start. So how can we make all of that happen? Well, to start off, I'm going to go up to the Insert ribbon, and I am going to go to Choose Page Number. Let's see, where can I find Choose Page Number? We're going to insert page number. There we go. All right. And I'm going to put it at the bottom of the page in the middle. You don't have to put it here. You can put it in another spot according to the formatting of your specific discipline or formatting style. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to go the bottom in the middle. All right, so now we have some page numbers here, but it's not quite right because we've got a page number on the title page, we've got an Arabic number on the table of contents, and chapter 1 starts on page 3. So that is not quite what I want. How can I fix this? All right, so I'm going to go into my footer tools here, and I am going to click near this page number, page 1. All right, and I'm going to check the box up here in Design, Header and Footer Tools Design. I'm going to check the box Different First Page. Okay, that took away the page number from my title page. Awesome. But the table of contents still says page 2, which it shouldn't. So how do I fix this? All right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on the 2 of page 2, okay? And I am going to right click and I'm going to go to Format Page Numbers. Now this is still front matter at this point, so I don't want Arabic numerals. I'm going to want Roman numerals. So under number format, I'm going to scroll down and pick the lowercase Roman numerals and click OK. All right, so now on my title page, I have no page number. On my table of contents, I have a lovely Roman numeral. Yay, looking good. On the first page of chapter 1, oh, it's still Roman numerals. Not what I want. All right, so here's what I need to do. On this page that precedes the first page of chapter 1, I'm going to go into the body here. I'm going to turn on my invisibles again. Okay, I see there's a page break right here. So I'm going to put my cursor right before the dots of the page break indication. Now I'm going to go to the page layout ribbon up here. I'm going to go to breaks. Here's breaks, section breaks right here, and next page. Now I'm going to click on next page. That created a new blank page. I'm going to click delete until chapter 1 appears on the page. Aha, chapter 1 does appear on the page now. Perfect. Now I'm going to double click in the header section. Now notice on the right, I see something here that says same as previous. What this is telling me is that this section is the same as the previous section. So I want to unlink this. In the design ribbon, I'm going to go to where it says link to previous, and this is dark gray, and I'm going to click it to unlink the section. So just clicked on link to previous to unlink, and I'm going to do the same thing in the footer area. Link to previous. Okay, now I have unlinked. All right, now in the insert ribbon, now that I'm down here in the footer, I'm going to go to the insert ribbon. I'm going to do page number, bottom of the page. Sorry, bottom of the page, plain number 2. Here we go. All right, I see a page number on the page, but it's still in Roman numeral format, and it's still a Roman numeral number 3. What do I do? Well, I'm going to double click on this Roman numeral number 3. I'm going to right click and select Format Page Numbers. At this point, I am going to choose the Arabic numerals, and I am going to choose Start at 1. Okay. And that has taken care of my page numbering issues. I'm going to close out my header and footer, and look at what this did. I'm going to turn off my invisibles here. So here's my title page, no page number. Here's my table of contents, Roman numerals. And here's my first page of my dissertation, starting with Arabic numeral number 1. That is the page numbering that you want to have for your thesis or dissertation. All right, so that is what I have prepared to show to you all today for thesis and dissertation formatting. I hope that this demonstration has been helpful to you, and I wish you the best of luck in formatting your own thesis or dissertation. Thank you again for watching this video. I appreciate your time, and feel free to email us with any questions at graduate.studies@uta.edu.